I heard that they have a nickname for me called the European Weishao. I'm hoping that we will be able to get through this group and make it to the best of 5 at least.
В этом году все сложнее, от нас много чего ожидают, поэтому каждый будет готовиться.
저희가 조가 엄청 쉽게 걸렸다고 생각하거든요. 경쟁력 너무 없다 생각해서 다 이기고 올라갈 거고.
最近状态算还可以吧，至少可以走到16强。
Creo que podemos hacerle frente a cualquier rival y bueno, me gustaría demostrarlo este año.
I would like to verse Team WE because the crowd would be crazy and I'd love to shut the crowd up.
지금 상태를 보면 저는 지금 4강 갔으면 좋겠어요.
Obviamente eu espero passar da fase de grupo, é o mínimo que eu quero para mim.
Tenemos mucho por mejorar, pero creo que estamos bien para este torneo. Si viajamos tanto, venimos a ganar y vamos a tratar de dar lo mejor.
僕たちがどのぐらい強いか、それを見せるためになんか上のグループステージまで頑張ります。
Riêng bản thân em á, thì em rất háo hức khi mong ngày đến ngày thi đấu.
我觉得只要打好队伍的特点，完全可以赢下任何一支队伍。欢迎来到武汉，希望大家尽情的享受比赛。
好的，现场所有英雄联盟的召唤师们，让我感受一下你们的热情，好吗？好的，非常棒，这里是中国武汉，欢迎来到2017全球总决赛入围赛。
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Worlds 2017. This is Daniel Dracos, joined by Mark Zimmerman and Aiden Zyrene Moon. You're getting a view of the Wuhan Sports Center Gymnasium, where Chinese broadcast host Ren Dong is introducing the players participating in the play-in stage. I'm so excited that finally Worlds is starting.
You made it, Mark.
I did it. I've been waiting for so long. Even though it's only been 2.5 weeks, it feels like forever since the regional qualifiers ended. So it's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited to see these play-in teams and see what they got.
And now it's time for us to look at those exact teams coming in from Group A. And first, we have to take a look at Lyon Gaming.
Lyon, from the LYN, has 9 regional championships. They are the most domestically dominant team in the entire tournament. They have absolutely obliterated their region for years.
So good to see them again. Of course, very close battles for Lyon in the past when it's come to these sort of stages, when it's come to qualifying rounds at MSI especially.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that had such a close match against Gigabyte Marines. Didn't quite get out, but there was one match separating the two.
Of course, now our next team, Gambit Gaming, once again returning to the world stage for what feels like has been an eternity.
Yeah, and they have some really historic members on their team. You see Gambit with Diamond Prox and Edward once again, but they also have incorporated some members of Albus Nox Luna in that kind of miracle run that they had last year.
And now I'm really wondering, with that veteran talent paired with the craziness that was Albus Nox Luna, what they're going to be able to do. But now we have to talk about the final team coming in, the first seed in this group, the 3rd seed from China, Team WE. You can hear the crowd just lose their mind.
Yeah, hometown representatives from the LPL. They represented the LPL at MSI. Is their first Worlds appearance in 5 years. Last time was 2012, and they were named World Elite back then. Since then, they've changed their name to WE. This is the tournament for them to earn back that title of being among the World's Elite.
Once again, the teams from Group A, excited to see these guys play today, want to know what they're going to bring to the table. It's a new patch, it's a new meta, and there's so much to see. But now we have to take the next step. We have to look forward as we get ready for the teams from Group B. And this is yet another one I think will be closely contested. First up is, of course, the Direwolves coming in from Oceania, the OPL, and these guys, I think, a surprise appearance once again on the international stage.
Yeah, I mean, they're a very old org in the Oceanic region, but they retooled really heavily in 2016, rebuilt their roster, and now for 2 splits in a row, they have won their region, and they represent them at MSI, and once again, here at the World Championship.
And of course, as we move forward, as we look to the next team, eyes on them, but old rivals of Oceania and the OPL, none other than the CB LOL and Team 1 Esports. If you want to talk about surprise appearances on the stage, Team 1 are definitely a solid case.
Absolutely incredible that they've made it here. A big surprise for Brazilian fans, They joined the league in summer. This is their first split as a team, and after that one split, they were able to take down Brazil's MSI representatives of the Red Canids and the infamous Pain Gaming to get here.
Very surprising, I think, very impressive that they have made it this far. But of course, the final team to round out this group, I think a stranger to none for any of the English-speaking viewers, Cloud9, coming in as the first seed in this group, the third seed from NA.
Yeah, since Cloud9's inception, they have never missed a Worlds appearance. This is their 5th consecutive Worlds.
And the only consistent member among all 5 of those appearances is Sneaky. It's really great to see this guy on the world stage once again. Had a little bit of a rough slip, but he bounced back right at the very end.
And once again, the teams of Group B. One last wave to the fans before they take their steps off. They will be playing today alongside the teams of Group A. Really wonder what they're going to show us as well. See what we have in store here at the play-in stage. Move on, of course, excited as ever as we turn our attention now to Group C. First up, a surprising one for many, coming in as the 2nd seed from GPL and the 2nd Vietnamese team at this tournament playing in the play-in stage, Young Generation. Such an amazing story for this region.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first ever 2nd representative from an emerging region. And that's all off the back of the work that the Gigabyte Marines had done at the Mid-Season Invitational.
And now it's time for the Vietnamese region to prove off of the Gigabyte Marines' performance. Is it just them, or is it the entire region that needs to be respected?
Yeah, and I want to know. We can have another Levi. What else have they got to show us? What kind of monster mechanical performances will we see? But that's no longer the focus, as Chaos Latin Gamers will be the next team to take the stage. And these guys have been up and down, but they definitely earned their spot this year.
Yeah, I mean, they were relegated in spring, had to fight for their spot in the promotion tournament. They stayed in the league, and now they actually won summer, and they're representing the whole region. They upset Asurus Gaming, the representative at MSI earlier in the year, so huge, like you said, bounce-back performance for them.
Of course, the final team to round it out, 3rd seed from Europe and 1st seed in this group, it will be Fnatic, representing Europe. I'm curious to see what they can bring out here, what they can show us in the World stage.
And they are completely used to the World stage. This is their 6th Worlds appearance, only missing 2016 last year. But after that failure, they went back to the drawing board and they rebuilt around the Star 80 carry Reckless. So I'm really eager to see what happens here.
Got the synced up fingers.
They're ready. They got 3 veterans, 2 rookies. Both the rookies are there as well. They're ready. They're synced up, but Group C done. One final group remains. There's so many groups, so many interesting stories here. But the final one I think I'm especially excited for, it is going to be Group D coming up. First team on this list, hotly contested as always from the LGL, but Rampage has made the cut this year, taking down Detonation Focus Me to earn their spot.
And it's a little bit of a redemption story here for Rampage Gaming at Mid-Season Invitational. They kind of busted out a little bit of the group stage. They did have a good bounce-back performance at Rift Rivals, and they're looking to kind of continue that evolution on the international stage.
Interesting to see exactly what their roster can do as well. Dara, Tussle, Toru Moyashi, so many names here for the Japanese audience that they're excited to see. But as we look forward to our next team, this is one I think analysts have been praising, a team that people are very excited about from emerging regions, none other than the representatives from the TCL 1907 Fenerbahce.
Representing Turkey, they actually joined the league at the beginning of the year, so after 1 year as a team, they were able to take down some Turkish super teams, Supermassive, and get themselves here. And we're looking at this team as somebody that also imported some players, some 2 Koreans on the roster, maybe some familiar faces here as well.
Frozen and Move, of course, stepping up onto that lineup, backed up by the veteran Cauldron. But one final team remains for the World's play-in stage, and that is none other than the 3rd seed from the LMS, Hong Kong Attitude. And this is one I want to see what these guys can do, because they surprised me when they made it here, but they definitely earned it.
You're looking at this team, first thing you see is that logo. Instant win there in my book.
It's instant crowd favorite.
Yeah, but of course the 3rd seed from the LMS, they actually surprised so many people because they had a late season surge. They placed 6th in the regular season, missed playoffs, but then they crushed in the regional qualifiers to get here.
Yeah, some people are so hyped up on this team, they're actually saying they're probably the 2nd best representative from the LMS, so this is definitely going to be a team to keep your eye on.
Yeah, putting them above AHQ, bold statements all around, but that is going to round it out. That is Group D. crowd ready now for some games.
Remember, we won't be seeing C or D until day 3 and 4. It's just groups A and B that we'll be seeing in the first 2 days.
For some final words from our host, Ren Dong. Hello once again, Daniel Dracos here alongside Mark Zimmerman and Ian Zyrene. You just heard their voices. Now you get to see their pretty faces as well. Show me, where's the Hong Kong attitude pose at?
They have so many different logos. They have a ton of them.
I love it. I know my shades,
because it's the one where they're holding the logo, you know.
Congratulations as well. This is Mark C's first Worlds appearance, not being on the alt stream.
It's a story for so many of the teams, and now Mark Z as
just
well.
the poster boy for hard work and success.
Just make it out of groups this time.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see. Let's get things rolling, though, with a refresher on what's changed coming into Worlds 2017. First up, we're starting the tournament with the addition of the play-in stage, where 12 teams fight for the remaining 4 Pool 3 spots in the group stage. You just saw them on your screen. To do that, teams will need to place in the top 2 in play-ins and win 1 best-of-5 to earn a spot in groups, which is a much tougher path than we're used to in Worlds before. Now, that is going to bring us to today's schedule, where our first game hits Hometown Heroes Team WE against Lyon Gaming, followed by Cloud9 versus Team 1, with the remainder of Group A and B facing off in their first round robin for the rest of the day. Now, one thing to emphasize about this leg of the tournament is that there is really no room for error. Best of 1, double round robin, 4 games to prove yourself on this stage.
I mean, that's the big thing. There's only 4 games. If you have 1 bad draft, you have 1 bad day, you are suddenly looking at not only potentially not getting out of groups, but even just getting a lower seed is so detrimental in this format.
Yeah, and we heard Kira talking about it from Gambit. You don't know what's going to happen here. The guy was on Albus Nox when they played those BO1s. Rocks, Tigers going down, left and right. We're seeing teams drop. You can't drop any games here. And for me, I'm looking at those #1 seeds coming into the group, because they are kind of a shoo-in in a lot of people's minds to make the group stages. So do they show a lot here? Because you have to come in and you have to crush these teams, because you can't drop a single game, but you don't want to show too much. So it's that fine balance coming into the group stage.
Trying to figure it out, but of course, the first seed all too important. However, as we look forward, we're going to take a look at Group A and B's Best of the Rift, presented by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network. Now, these are the 5 players we want you to keep your eye on to steal the spotlight in Worlds. First up, I don't think it's a surprise for a lot of LPL fans, it's Team WE's Mystic.
And for those of you who are not LPL fans, this guy is potentially one of the best players in the entire tournament. He is an absolute monster in the bot lane, crushes laning phase, and transitions that perfectly into team fighting.
And the guy has the highest damage share for any AD carry in this tournament. And he comes from a league with Uzi, who is known to get funneled resources. So if you are watching Team WE, you're watching Mystic, you're watching Condi, and Mystic especially, because they put a lot of resources in him.
I want to see what he can do, but speaking of top 80 carries from regions, we've got none other than WhiteLotus coming in as well. Representative from the LLN, this guy has been a Titan domestically.
Yeah, I think if you've watched any MSI, you would have seen a couple huge performances out of him. You see the potential is there, like we said before. A little unfortunate that they were in the same group as Gigabyte Marines, really held them down. They might have been able to move out if they didn't have to fight them. And overall, he just had a monster performance and why they were able to look so good.
And he's been able to dominate lane, a crushing CSD at 15 for the guy in lane phase. And I want to see if he can transition that dominance domestically to international dominance. But of course, another person who's had a great lane phase, and we want to see if he can actually transition that, is Cloud9's Jensen in the mid lane, because this guy has had an incredible season in terms of getting that all-pro NALCS mid laner, is a big catalyst for the team, and I'm watching his lane phase in particular.
Yeah, much like how a lot of WE's playstyle is funneled through Mystic, the same thing is true for C9 and Jensen. He is the huge linchpin for this team. He always smashes lane. He transitions that into huge team fights, huge Orianna shockwaves over the course of the season, and much of it comes down to who else will be able to step up around him, because you know he's going to perform.
And now I'm wondering if Contracts can step up, because when we look at that group, it's going to be tightly contested for the jungle pool. Direwolves are bringing Schernfire in. This man is so active in the early game.
Yeah, active in the early game, active with a microphone in front of his face. He said he wants to take on WE just so he can hopefully shut up the crowd. He is a guy who is a huge playmaker in and out of game, obviously, and he really does kind of lead the Direwolves in that early game. All of their early plays are keyed off of whatever he's trying to do.
Yeah, and one of the big things I'm looking forward to here is his rematch, actually, versus Contracts. Back in 2016 spring, they were both in the NA Challenger Series playing against each other as these aggressive rookie junglers, and Contracts got the better of him. So I think Schernfire is going to come out with a fire and try to take him down.
Yeah, and our last player, certainly not least, Edward coming in from Gambit Gaming, now returning to the world stage. This man has such a legacy in League of Legends.
Yeah, last seen at Worlds in 2012. He was the Thresh Prince back then, and he still is today. A huge playmaker for Gambit and a lot of how they get early leads.
Oh, the big thing to look at is just seeing him suddenly in the top side, 4 minutes in the game. Out of nowhere, he shows up, takes the 2v2 in the top lane, makes it a 3v2, able to bring in that little bit of extra CC and make a big play.
And one of the things we think about with the old school Gambit, old school Europe, was innovation, right? You think back to Genja, you think back to Darien. Now we're seeing a little bit here from Edward in terms of the roams being a little bit unpredictable, and we'll see if it actually holds up here at this time.
You got Kira as well with the Anivia in the mid lane. Nothing short of innovation on this lineup. But of course, these are the players we expect to make their mark in our first 2 days of competition. But you can make sure to leave your mark on the competition with the newest additions to the championship line. Proceeds of the championship Ash and Ward skins will not only contribute 25% of the purchase to the world's prize pool, but an additional 25% of the proceeds will be donated to charity. And of course, you can unlock the championship Ash Chroma through the world's missions, which will be available through all of Worlds. But, however, as we look forward, gentlemen, I want a moment to think a little bit about Groups A and B. Of course, I think it's an easy bet for a lot of people to just look at those seed ones, but what is the upset potential here when we look at some of these teams?
I mean, each group is a little different. I think sometimes you're looking at, might there be an upset at the first seed position, and sometimes you're looking at who might be the other team to get out. Group A is an example where, like, WE is so dominant and it has 2 great teams behind it. It's going to be a really tough battle to see who can actually get that second seed, as opposed to some other groups where there might be a big upset at the 1 seed.
Yeah, if there's an upset in the 1 seed, it completely changes what the outlook of the group is. But looking at that number 2 seed, because 2 teams make it out of each group, remember? So I'm looking at those other teams in those groups to see if there's a really big standout that's kind of overlooked here. My mind kind of goes to, Gambit, what's going to happen there, what's going to happen with Fenerbahce or 1907, different year.
Gotta get the date right. Gotta get the date right, man.
But like, what happens with these teams? Because when you make it out of these play-in groups, you end up in a best of 5. That's single elimination. There is no saving you there. And if one team that's supposed to be a number 1 ends up number 2, you could be looking at something like a Fnatic versus Cloud9 to get into the group stage.
Yeah, and the interesting difference to me is that we start with best of 1, right? And the strength that you have in best of 1 doesn't always transition to best of 5. So the team that might be best in a 5 could not find a way if they can't find that same strength in the best of 1.
I think the big thing, too, is that there's always the world's meta to kind of figure out, and it's one of those situations here where some teams are coming in with crazier picks. You were talking a little bit about, some of these teams, and they're playing things like the Anivia mid, they're playing things like the Ziggs mid, and there's these different play styles, and if you're a team like Fnatic and C9, they usually play more standard, so you can have this big clash of styles in that best of 1 as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot about playing your style. You prepare for your opponents, of course, but you have to play your style, and you can't let the other team really dictate it, because you can't drop a single game.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what that style looks like. Without further ado, let's kick off Worlds 2017 by sending it over to the casters. Take it away, Captain Flowers.
Hello, everyone. I'm Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, joined by my brother from an EU mother, Andrew Vedius Day. Are you ready, Vedi?
I am very ready, and I'm excited to be joined by the hype man himself, Captain Flowers. Now, I know you're a big hype man, but to make sure that you stay hydrated throughout some of the games today, I have brought with me my very own European watering can so that you will always be watered for the early games of Worlds today.
Well, we'll water the flowers. We have equipped Baron with his championship armor for our first game of Worlds. Team WE versus Lyon Gaming. Taking on to the Rift for the blue side in game number 1. It's Team WE with 957 in the top lane, Condi in the jungle, xiye mid, Mystic bot, Ben supporting, and Coach Home.
And facing them on the red side, it is Lyon Gaming. In the top lane is Jirall, their jungler Oddie, mid lane is Seiya, their AD carry WhiteLotus, on support is Genthix, and their coach Yeti.
Now, Lyon Gaming have a tall task at the start of Worlds 2017 here, not only playing the opening game, but facing off against hometown heroes in Team WE.
Yeah, a lot of pressure is going to be on Team WE because China just expects this team to dominate their group. A lot of analysts have predicted it, but the home crowd is looking at WE and saying, this should be an easy group for you. WE is expected to be one of the best teams even coming out from China as a representative, and one of the players leading that is their AD carry, Mystic. You heard them talking about him on the analyst desk, and it's no surprise when you see him playing game. This guy is so consistent. He is so impressive to watch. in those team fights specifically. And I think he's going to be a big contributing factor in the success of this team.
And if the most dominant team from the Latin American North League want to pull off this upset against Team WE and against Mystic, it's going to be through their jungler, Oddie.
It certainly will be, because this guy is the catalyst for success on the side of Lyon Gaming. He is what allows players like Seiya and WhiteLotus to really flourish within their region. But with the recent meta changes, he has been struggling a little bit domestically, because in the past, he used to be known for things like the LYN, the Elise, these early game skirmishes, the snowballers, to get these carries ahead in the early game where they would run away with things. But now he can't do that. He's on things like the Gragas and the Sejuani, which are a little bit slower to play, but he still sticks to that early game style, which can often hurt him. So going up against a jungler like Condi, who's extremely consistent, has all these versatile playstyles, I think it's going to be a lot on him to step up to match that level of competition.
And for the whole team, the pressure is on going up against the home team. Like we mentioned earlier, WE, a hometown favorite for the LPL region. They really like to cheer for these guys. This is a team that a lot of people have a lot of faith in. A lot of people are seeing this as one of the stronger teams in the entire tournament, not just the play-in stage. So Lyon Gaming will definitely make a statement if they come out strong against these guys.
They certainly will be. And remember, Captain Flowers, the thing is, back at MSI, this team went 7-3. And one of the losses was to the Gigabyte Marines. A little bit unexpected. Nobody saw it coming. And for a team like Lyon Gaming, they have the potential, especially when you look at the individual talent on players like Seiya and WhiteLotus, and even Jirall if he's put in the situation to carry. But WE is a difficult team to snowball against. They just seem so well-rounded. They seem to have very few weaknesses that you can really try and funnel in on unless they fall behind in the early game. So it's things to explore during the Champion Select, because there are going to be a lot of changes as well coming into the draft on this in Worlds.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. We are playing on patch 7.18. Ornn is disabled, so you will not be seeing any of him throughout this. However, there were a number of changes on patch 7.18, of which I now want to ask you, which do you think are going to cause the biggest commotion? What do you think we're going to be seeing specifically from patch 7.18 in these opening games of Worlds?
So I think one of the big things that has changed about the most recent patch is the changes to Cinderhulk, where now you don't get as much HP because the order in which Cinderhulk was interacting with it has changed. So it's slightly weaker now, it's slightly less tanky, but also Cinderhulk, the item itself, was nerfed, which means that tanks, especially in the early game, are a little bit weaker. And when you look at champions as well, like LYN, who've had a few small buffs to their early game skirmishing, there could be windows, there could be room for people to experiment. It's very much depending on what teams have been practicing. I've heard whispers of maybe because of the reverts to Fiora and her movement speed being changes, that she could now move up to the top lane as well, especially given the recent nerfs to Cinderhulk tanks in the current meta as well. So I think that with a lot of small changes could maybe knock down priority to a couple of big tanks, but also raise the priority of a couple of carries that we have seen come out here and there.
I mean, League of Legends is a game of very small number changes being just absolutely central towards how the game is balanced, towards what is the best and what is not the best. I mean, we all make jokes about things like 5 AD, but at the end of the day, those sorts of small changes can have very large impacts on what you see in the meta overall. Small changes to Cinderhulk might see things shaken up a little bit in the jungle there. Also want to comment on the fact that Knight's Vow did get its price reduced, but also its health value reduced. And considering a lot of the junglers that we are seeing in the meta these days love going Cinderhulk into Knight's Vow, just being that supportive style meatball that stands in front of the AD carry and keeps him protected or engages on the enemy team, we might see a little less prevalence of that. We might get to see a little bit of a different approach in the jungle. And if I'm watching some big playmakers, especially in these environments like best of ones, where sometimes you see crazy strategies come out to pull a win out of nowhere, I want to see that. I want to see that.
I want to see it as well, Captain Flabs. You got to remember, you talk about these small changes. We saw on this or that, the +3 armor, -3 armor for Gragas and Rengar. Like, there's the possibility for these new champions to come out, especially with Gragas. His hitboxes have slightly changed as well on the E, so it's a little bit harder to land right now. We'll see how teams have adapted to that kind of playstyle. Tristana, very small nerf to her scaling as well. Cassio, a very prevalent mid lane champion that has really been popular throughout the world, has also taken a very small hit, and her early skirmishing may very well be a little weaker. And because of all these small changes here and there, it just makes you wonder, what new stuff have people been practicing? Have they come out with some new creative answers to some of these strong champions? Like, we've seen Jax come out here and there. We've heard Jace, or we know Jace is very popular over in the LCK, but in other regions, has he now become even more prevalent. Not a very big pick that was very strong for a long time, but also it makes you wonder, how important are these art and sensor supports going to be? Is that going to be the priority? Do you want to insta-lock that Janna, or is something like the Alistar? Do you want that tanky front line? Maybe you put the tank in the bottom lane and then you bring out junglers like the Ivan, who also had a very small buff. And as you rightly said, like, it's just so many small increments, like all over the shop. It's all about how different teams interpret that patch and how their read on the meta and what they see as strong and weak.
And, you know, we talk about these champions that we've seen some of so far, and these picks that we commonly see as evergreens that almost never fade out of the meta unless they've just been completely nerfed. At the same time, I'm really hoping at least some point during this tournament, we get to see something that feels almost completely out of left field. Like, wait, where did that come from? I didn't even think of this as a pick in this situation. Those are one of my all-time favorite things to see, because then you go into the game and you get to leave that game with a very distinct feeling. You either have that feeling of, so this is why no one ever plays this because it's terrible, or you get to think, could this be the beginning of a new way of the meta being shaped?
And it's great that you mentioned that as well, because one of the picks that immediately comes to mind is Jungle Ezreal. And the reason why I mention that is because the players on your screen right now, Team WB, they brought out the Jungle Ezreal during the LPL playoffs, and it wasn't as successful as they would have liked, but the fact is they were willing to bring that pick out. They were willing to try it, and it just goes to show the level of depth that players like Condi does have. He is the type of jungler that can play that early game style where he can snowball his mid laners to give them that massive lead. Like, think back to SKT where they ran the Lucian mid, and everyone's like, oh, they brought it out. They brought out that innovative pick. They just camp mid, they set up xiye for success, and they smash SKT in a very convincing fashion. And Condi, he can also play those scaling junglers, and that's why a lot of our focus as well was going to be on the answer on the other side. How can Oddie stack up against him? Will he be able to find a pick in the current meta that really complements his style and set up his hyper carries in the form of Seiya and WhiteLotus to be able to succeed and compete with this LPL powerhouse?
And, you know, talking about a team that has beaten SKT convincingly, that is not just something that you can brush off and say, oh yeah, I guess we did this one thing this one time. That's a hell of a statement to be able to make. And if you're going up against a team like this, if you're the representative from the LLN, if you're Lyon Gaming going up against Team WE, this is not one of the kinds of teams that you're normally used to going up against in your international competition experiences, simply because with the play-in stage being introduced to Worlds 2017, you're getting to see more teams compete at Worlds than would previously be competing. You're getting to see different types of matchups, considering the third seeds from these larger regions are playing in the play-ins as well, like you're seeing with Cloud9, like you're seeing with Fnatic, like you're seeing with WE. So some of these teams that are normally going to compete in what previously would have been wildcard qualifiers and things like that, they're now going up against some bigger fish. It'll be an interesting experience. It'll be one where they really have to step up their level of play, especially for a team like Lyon Gaming, which has been so historically dominant in their own region.
But it's also just one of those things where you get to prove yourself, right?
Exactly.
Because when you're Lyon Gaming and you're 9-time champion domestically, that's like Hall of Fame worthy, right? Like, no matter what you say about the region, to win 9 times in a row is a very impressive feat. And when you look at players like Seiya specifically, he's been on that team for all 9 championships, right? That is such an incredible achievement to make, but it doesn't mean as much when you come to these international tournaments and you're going up against these Chinese representatives and you think like, I want to be able to prove that it's not just domestically. I can compete on this international stage. I can challenge xiye, the dude that put FLICKR a step back, right? Like, being able to just get these small achievements and just putting the pressure on these considered major regions is definitely a big achievement, and something that all these teams are working really hard to do. And when you look especially at Group A, a lot of people consider that the group of death, right? Gambit, Lyon, WE. Like, it's really exciting, and you never really know what you're going to get in this best-of-1 format with a brand new patch as well.
Plus, like we heard on the desk, not only is it a best-of-1 format, it's a best-of-1 format with 4 games that you get to play.
4.
If something goes wrong in one of those games, maybe if you're having a fantastic game and then you end up having a minor slip-up that causes you to throw the game, that might throw your entire chance at moving on in Worlds. Every single one of these games, these teams have to be taking seriously. They have to have it at the forefront of their mind, be seriously focused on what they're doing. This isn't a time where you can just get complacent and say, okay, we're worried about the next step. We're worried about the next game. Each one of these games, these teams are going to have to be well prepared for.
And it's all about how well you are prepared for the meta specifically as well, because if you don't read quick enough that there's this really strong champion that everyone can take advantage of, then you can very quickly fall behind. behind. But we don't have to talk about it anymore because we're going to get to see some of these really strong champions that some of these teams have been preparing.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing how the drafts go between some of these squads, especially from different regions, because there's a lot of times, and we saw it, I don't know, there was this little thing that happened, I don't know if you remember, it was called Rift Rivals.
Right.
And in Rift Rivals,
what happened?
we got to see some examples of things happening, like teams from regions that don't normally play a certain champion, like LeBlanc out there, and they wouldn't ban it, and then it would go through, and then representatives from other regions were able to play that champion incredibly well. You wonder, how will they adapt? How will they deal with these picks that they aren't normally used to dealing with? But now we are into Champion Select for the first time here of Worlds 2017 during the play-in stage, and let's see exactly how WE and Lyon decide to approach each other, with Rek'Sai and Alistar banned away first by WE, Lyon deciding to take Kalista off the table immediately.
Now, it's quite fascinating that WE would be the ones to ban Alistar, because during their playoffs and during the gauntlet, they put a lot of emphasis on getting Ben this playmaking support in the form of Alistar. It was a very big focal point for them, which they're now taking off the board. So it now makes you wonder, do champions like Tristana, Xayah, Rakan all raise in priority? And even after the small nerfs Rakan did have, I still feel like the duo combo of Xayah and Rakan is still a very prevalent bottom lane.
Well, Tristana, you mentioned, also going to be banned away now by WE. Lyon deciding to remove Sejuani and Jarvan from the pool of available champions, two of those big initiators. We know they like to get tanky, like to get in there and get things going for their teams, but they will not be doing that today. Xayah picked up by WE, first pick of the tournament.
So in terms of the meta right now, things are looking very stable, not a huge big shift. The only real surprise may be this Rek'Sai ban from the side of WE. But with the early lock-in from Xayah, you're already setting us up for a very powerful bottom lane for WE. Something like a Thresh would be lovely to complement that. And Lyon, they're already responding. They're going to play a little bit more defensively, locking themselves in an early Braum.
Braum locked in for Lyon means they're going to have that support power down there, that disengage ability. Can be manipulated and abused a little bit by certain ranged supports, but we'll have to see how that ends up playing out as they also grab themselves even more tank ability. Maokai grab.
So they're already building themselves this strong team fighting setup. The Maokai can flex to both top and jungle. And we talked a little about how Oddie, he has been struggling a little bit in the meta, but the thing about Maokai is not exactly the most complex champion in order to succeed on, right? He can be that early game impact, but he's always going to have that mid to late game value with the crowd control and teamfight prowess that he will offer alongside Braum.
And the response to that, they're saying, hey, you want to draft a big front line? Well, we are going to draft literally the biggest champion in League of Legends. WE going to pick up Cho'Gath for themselves. Now thinking about exactly what they want to complement that with before we get into the next part of the bans. One pick left here for the LPL representatives to go with. Thinking about this Janna for a long time, and they will lock that one in.
So, as you rightly identified, going for a little bit more of a range support. The Ardent Sensor that we have been seeing. Again, a small change to Ardent Sensor. It's now flat values rather than scaling throughout levels, which means it just gives you an immediate impact, and it's not going to get even more terrifying, but it's still a strong item. Yeah,
it's still a ridiculously powerful item, Vedius. We've seen what it can do and exactly how the meta has shaped and bent around it in recent times, and we are going to see Lyon Gaming pick up Kog'Maw for themselves there in the bottom lane. Heading into the second part of the bans, they'll also take LeBlanc off the table.
And remember, one of the big people that we talked about for Lyon was this WhiteLotus player. He's one of the main carries of the team, and right now he's being put on the Kog'Maw, and as we all know, Kog'Maw is someone that in the late game you can just rely on to be that big hyper carry. So with a Braum, with a Maokai, you can see Lyon starting to build a composition around WhiteLotus to set him up for success. Now the thing that Lyon tend to do is they'll usually pick more towards comfort rather than, say, the traditional meta that you would expect. And what I would normally say is here, Seiya would go for something a little bit more aggressive. He's about trying to dominate his own lane, and that means Oddie has a few more options where he wants to play around. But with a LeBlanc ban, perhaps Lyon have shifted up their style of focus, and maybe they're going to go all in on WhiteLotus.
One more ban left to go for each side, seeing exactly how they want to finish shaping this champion select. Galio banned away by Lyon, so taking off that big tanky frontliner, as well as the ability to support from such a long way away, utilizing the power of the hero's engine.
I feel like Orianna is the key pick right now for Lyon's strong laner, provides great utility, can be both defensive and offensive with regards to Kog'Maw, and it will give you that additional bit of damage if Kog'Maw is not off to the rolling start that you would like him to have during the early lane phase.
Well, we're into that last part of the picks here. Both the Shen and the Karma taken off the board by Team WE, so preventing some of that Protect the Kog'Maw classic composition that might have been the idea there for Lyon. But now Lyon still has plenty of options left to go. You said you're potentially expecting to see something like an Orianna here, but Syndra is what Lyon decides to lock in as their mid lane.
Now, the thing that I love about Syndra is her ability to set up ganks. The QE combo, the stun, makes it so easy for a jungler to just walk in, get the follow-up CC, a level 6 Syndra hits you with an ulti, boom, that's a very quick kill. You then gain pressure in the mid lane. Yes, it's not as good at peeling for your AD carry, but we go back to what we were talking about with Seiya as a player. He likes to be a carry too, he likes to be a playmaker. He's a 9-time champion regionally, and he wants to prove that he can compete with xiye on an international stage.
Gragas, the 4th pick, locked in here for WE. More frontline capability for these guys, more initiation potential. We know how much a well-placed explosive cast can do to completely change a game or change a team fight. The ability to separate multiple targets, the ability to pick someone off like that can go a long way. Let's see if WE can execute on that one the way they want to, as they also lock in Corki, 5th and final pick.
So, Team WE, they're going for a bit of a... I'd say that the big thing I can see about Team WE's comp right now is they have no reliable way to engage. Yes, you have the Gragas, but remember, on 718, he has had a slight nerf to the hitbox on his E and his engage power, which means that, especially when you're going up against things like a Braum and a Maokai and a LYN as well.
There we go, Vedius. That's what you were talking about. Mentioning how, with the nerfs to the Cinderhulk, maybe the drift away from those tanky junglers, and especially with the LYN buffs recently on 7.18, we might get to see Oddie on those playmakers.
Oh, this makes me so excited, Captain Fast. But let's just focus in on WE, because we were talking about how their main and only engage really is the Gragas or a potential flank coming out from the Cho'Gath. But aside from that, you're very much about sieging, poking. You have the Corki, you have the Xayah, and in these late game fights, it's all just going to be about who can kill the enemy front line sooner. Because you have the Kog'Maw going up against the Cho'Gath and the Gragas, and then you have the Corki and the Xayah going up against the Maokai and the Braum. The big difference is going to be Lyon and this mid-jungle duo, Syndra Lee. So much potential for snowballing that mid lane. We talked about how they could play around WhiteLotus, but I think their attention is going to shift a little bit more in this game.
And you've also got to be a little bit concerned, or at least aware, if you're the Cho'Gath in this situation. I mean, what is the traditional weakness of picking this Cho'Gath? Even when everybody was saying, wow, this champion is so strong, people were saying, yeah, you're really great, but you're really vulnerable during the laning phase. People can gank you, they can set you behind, and if you're up against somebody with great setup CC like a Maokai and a easily executable ganker like a LYN, there might be possibility up there as well. Sky's the limit for Oddie in this game. You said it yourself, this is the guy who's going to carry. If this team will win, let's see if he can do it.
I'm excited, Captain Flies. It's the first game of the World Championship, Team WE versus Lyon Gaming. Oddie is playing an early game carry jungler, Seiya on the Syndra, and Team WE, they're going for a little bit more of a reserved composition. They're going to be looking to just play the slow early game, and Condi, his goal is going to be just trying to stop Oddie from getting that snowball roll.
Right, keep that LYN under control. Don't allow the early gank machine to get up and running the way that it wants to. And Condi, this is a guy who is seen by many as one of the best, if not strictly the best jungler in the LPL. People say that this guy is absolutely amazing. xiye going to take a little bit of damage here. But Ghost also used by Seiya. I don't know if that was a misclick or something, but you did hear the sound go off there. The summoner spell is going to be down momentarily, so gonna have to wait a couple of minutes before that one comes back online. But you do want to keep your eyes on Condi, do want to keep your eyes on Oddie, because a lot of the time for Team WE, Condi's performance and exactly where he decides to go and what he decides to do, that determines whether or not they're playing a game aggressively or just on the back foot.
Exactly that. A lot of the team's playstyle is very much dictated by how Condi decides to play the early game. Is he going to look to try and get some kind of early snowball, or is he going to look to just focus on farming, providing assistant pressure, setting up vision? And when you look at the comp of Lyon, it's pretty obvious where Oddie's looking to go, right? It's very clearly the Syndra. So his focus should be, okay, I need to get wards around the middle lane. I need to get an early control ward on the river. I need to make sure that my mid lane is properly supported. The fact that xiye doesn't have cleanse could be something to exploit later on into the game, but we'll see how things progress. Because the thing about Team WE is they are a very well-rounded team. They seem to have no obvious weaknesses. They can play early game snowballing or they can play late game team fighting. The one area that I feel that they are weak against is when they get put behind early. Largely because they just play reserve. They play back. They wait for an opportunity later on into the game, whether it be maybe playing around the Baron, maybe playing around the Elder Drake, or just waiting for that slight mistake to come out from their opposition that they can look to punish. But if their opponent doesn't make any mistakes, if their opponent just slowly pushes their advantage further and further, Team WE just concede the map. They just give the freedom to their opposition to do whatever they want. And when you look back against their series versus RNG, RNG had their cleanest games thanks to that early game lead that they got. So it's going to be very important for Lyon to be able to find that early lead if they want a shot against Team WE.
Yeah, Team WE, they have a fairly low average game time if you're looking at the stats of the different teams here at Worlds. And you would contribute that to exactly what you were talking about. If they're ahead, they're going to snowball, they're going to do well, they're going to win the game. If they're behind, they won't take that many actions. It's not like they're going to turn this into a bloodbath and they'll just let it go. But now, some damage onto xiye here in the mid lane. Seiya, not a lot of mana to continue fighting this one, but will take him down low. Doesn't have an Ignite as a summoner spell there, so won't look to go any further for now. Oddie potentially thinking about showing up in here. xiye is vulnerable. Both summoner spells available. Oddie jumping in. Sonic Wave not going to find the mark. xiye just casually sidestepping now.
You've also got to keep your eyes on Condi. He is very aware of where Oddie is. He was stealing away some of the Raptors, but there was a ward on there reading the play. Now Oddie and Condi just going to butt heads and make way. So Oddie not able to find any early success as of yet, but there's still plenty of the early game left to go. Condi doing his best to try and punish as a collapse happens down on the Lyon jungler.
Condi looking for Oddie yet again. 957 making the rotation around here as well. He did shove the top lane into the turret there against Jirall, so not really losing a lot of anything at this point in time. Heal going to be spended there for the Ghost in mid lane. Seiya's Ghost for the heal of xiye. Means both of these mid laners now only have the flashes ready to go. Oddie still hanging around, Condi still hanging around. Oddie comes over the wall, utilizing the safeguard, finds Condi. Sonic Wave lands, Resonating Strike not going to be going in.
They're not going to commit. They don't want to run the risk just yet. xiye is fairly low, but Condi has that slight health advantage in the early game. It's going to force Oddie back. So junglers return. Vision will spot Condi out once more. And Jirall, he's coming for the collapse.
Jirall is going to go ahead, prime this situation with that enchanted sapling into the brush. Make sure he gets extra damage should they decide to fight in this area. 957 just walking himself right back up here into the top lane. And I mentioned how the Cho'Gath is vulnerable to ganks early, but if he does not get ganked, if he does not get pressured, he's very annoying to deal with. He can shove the lane very easily. He's got plenty of AoE. Oddie now trying to smite to get his HP back. Condi walking back up in his face yet again. Condi just trying to get himself involved in as much as possible early.
So we've been talking a lot about the junglers in this early part of the game, Flowers, but we've also got to take a look at some of the other lanes, like down in the bottom. Mystic, he was able to get an early back thanks to the pressure that they had put down onto the Kog'Maw and the Braum. And we talked a little bit about in the champs, like going for an early Braum from the side of Lyon. Very defensive support playstyle. They want to make sure that they have that peel for WhiteLotus, along with providing that overall frontline for the composition. But he struggles during the laning phase. Janna and Xayah, they're a very powerful duo, especially when you have that additional range support. You get shielded, you get that bonus AD, things just get a little bit awkward for the Kog'Maw. So thanks to that early push, they were able to get an early back, but they weren't able to actually afford a pickaxe, which means that he's now only sitting on the double longsword, which means that he's likely going to go for a very early Essence Reaver, very likely an early Core Fields to get that early bit of AD and cooldown reduction.
Meanwhile, WhiteLotus on his first back, going to go ahead, grab himself the Berserker Greaves, a lot of extra attack speed, extra movement speed as well to escape any difficult situations or run down someone if they find themselves in a lead. Seiya hitting level 6 now on the Syndra. You were talking about how you wanted to see focus on this mid lane from Lyon Gaming, see if they can make something happen there. Once Syndra has that ulti, that's just that much more of a green light for these guys to look for that.
And remember, the heal is down. Keep your eyes on Oddie gaining vision control around the bottom half of the map. Ideally, he wants to just drop a ward around the Raptors so that he can prepare for a possible counter gank from Condi. But he is afraid right now. He doesn't feel confident enough to try and make that sort of play. And WE, they're reading exactly where Oddie is on the map. You got to remember, Condi, he is this kind of jungler that knows how to play that early game style himself. He's very cognizant of what Oddie is trying to do, and I feel like that he is reading his enemy jungler fairly well so far in this early game.
Has done a good job so far preventing Oddie from getting anything done. You saw him following him around both the mid lane and the top lane before. Mystic and Ben shoved their opponents up underneath the turret down here in the bottom side. And remember, Lyon Gaming, this is a team that in their own region. 9 championships back to back. I'm not going to repeat it 9 different times, but you get the idea. These guys win all the time, and a big reason they do that is because they are simply better than their opponents when it comes to laning, when it comes to individual player talent. So going up against WE here, doing a good job so far, staying relatively even, but falling slightly behind in farm in the bottom and top lanes with a lead for themselves there in mid.
The big thing about Lyon, though, that I've seen in particular over the last split is that they're no longer reliant on having that early game snowball advantage that they have been so dominant with over several seasons because of the shift in the meta, as we talked about during Champions League. That means that they've improved their ability to play the map. They understand better how to use pressure in terms of lanes. They know when they should set deep wards. They're much smarter about when they choose to pick fights, and because they've been forced to adapt, that has allowed the team to grow. But the issue is that so far within their region, there is yet to be a team that can truly challenge this superstar lineup domestically. And that's where we see the opportunity for more growth when they come to these international events. Because remember, Lyon, they went 4-2 in their group at MSI, but they ended up dropping to the Gigabyte Marines, who ended up representing their region exceptionally well during the group stages at MSI. But they seem to have learned from that. And from hearing from the players, they really want to prove to themselves that they can go up against WE, but for WE, they're just the clear favorites in their group. Some even argue that this is the best team representative from the LPL.
Which is interesting, right? Because you don't expect, when you're sending 3 representatives to Worlds, one of those representatives has to play during the play-in stage, the other 2 did not. You're not expecting the one that has to play during play-ins to be the one that people are favoring.
Exactly.
But like we've talked about, WE, a fan-favorite team, a team that a lot of people have a lot of faith in, star players in both Mystic and Condi. Right now, still no kills on the board yet. About 9 minutes into the game, Package is armed and ready on xiye. Has that one if he sees the opportunity to use it.
And all summoner spells are back up now. The big difference is that Jirall will have his TP earlier sooner, which means that Lyon could try and make a TP play somewhere, but with the amount of push that 957 has over his top lane counterpart, it becomes awkward to try and make a TP play in the bottom side unless there's some kind of jungle assistance from Oddie up in the top lane.
Speaking of Oddie, I want to jump back real quick to what you were talking about, specifically in Champion Select. And at the start of the game, the very beginning of Summoner's Rift, before that base portal ever even fell, you said Condi wants to contain Oddie this game. He wants to shut that down, not allow him to do anything. And considering his score is 0, 0, and 0 right now, it looks like he's done a pretty good job.
But also just keep an eye on the wards as well. They know exactly where Oddie is in the jungle. They're going to be the ones to start this Drake. And remember, Jirall, he has TP up, and 957 does not.
The collapse is coming in. This is going to be a showdown as it is secured by Condi and Team WE. Mystic trying to get himself away, utilizing the ulti for that one. Explosive cast going to be coming out from Condi as now he finds himself rooted up, locked down. And first blood of Worlds 2017 goes to Lyon Gaming.
WE secured themselves the Ocean Drake, but because they did not have the teleport available from 957, they could not commit to the fight. Oddie did a great job of singling out the AD carry of WE and forcing one of the key damage dealers out of the fight very early on. Now xiye, he wants to try and force Seiya back, which he will successfully do. But remember who got that kill? Seiya in the middle lane. He wants to get ahead in the early game, and by picking up this kill, it's a great way to start. So, Oddie, you'd think that he wants to commit here, but he doesn't. His eyes are all on Mystic. He wants to shut him down, but unfortunately for him, his Q runs out as Mystic flashes away, and Condi gives away his life to guarantee the safety of his carries. The TP came through from Jirall as well, and while the top lane tower will take a fair amount of damage, Lyon getting that first blood is going to be a big confidence booster coming into game 1.
They did get the first blood, but remember their opponents did secure the Ocean Drake, and this early into the match, that can do a lot for you, making sure that you're able to stay sustained in those lanes, have your health and mana bars a little bit more topped off. And just look at the gold, Vedius. Even though 600 gold's worth of first blood money went to Lyon Gaming, WE is still in the lead.
Yeah, and I feel like a fair amount of that is due to the difference up in the top lane. You can see a slight 300 advantage going in the favor of 957. But also, the biggest disparity is coming from the supports. Yep. Funnily enough, when you play that Ardent Sensor support, one of the big things that people say is the reason why it's so strong and so easy to get is because of Coin. Coin gets you a lot of sustain during the laning phase, but also just gets you a lot of gold. And there were a lot of discussions around, are we going to see the barrier heal in the bottom lane to get the Ardent Sensor even faster, along with the Relic Shield sort of build. But right now, he's doing a perfectly fine job. He's well on track to get that early ardent sensor. And the thing is, it gives Mystic a much stronger early game power spike. So once xiye completes his Trinity Force, and once Mystic completes the Essence Reaver along with an ardent sensor, WE are going to say, we're actually quite happy to fight right now because our top lane tank is good, our 2 carries can do damage. And so far, Lyon have not been able to get the sort of early snowballing that they initially wanted.
Exactly. When you compare the gold between these two supports, even though the farm between the AD carries is relatively even, as now we've got a fight breaking out. Exhaust down onto WhiteLotus, root out onto Genthix. Stun comes down onto Mystic as he continues pressing this forward. Minion wave going to find itself being slammed into the tier 1 turret here as Condi shows up to continue to scare these guys back. 957 teleport is available. Jirall does not have his. Tornado flies off, and Lyon will hold the line for now.
We also saw xiye moving through the river, and we have to come back to this vision control that is in favor of WE. They have lit up the bottom side of the map with just blue wards. They have control wards in the river and the entrances. They make sure they have control over the Scuttle Crab, and they're all about getting this early bottom tower. Lyon are really struggling to find an answer, and they're just going to have to concede.
Yep, Team WE going for that objective-based gameplay. They're saying, you can have first blood, we're going to take the first turret instead. Ending up getting the for themselves, hanging around, clearing away as many minions as possible, letting the turret eat up as much of that value as they can before taking it down, and that will bring WE up to a greater than 1,000 gold lead here 13 minutes into the game.
So now, you would expect both the Ardent Sensor and the Essence Reaver to be completed for WE. xiye is on track to complete its Trinity Force, and everything is looking very positive for WE. We're yet to see Oddie have the level of impact that we wanted to see after himself picking up this Lee Sin. Lee Sin did have a few minor buffs to his shield, particularly in the early game, making his trading and skirmishing that little bit stronger, and combined with the Cinderhulk nerfs, tanks are a little bit weaker, but Condi's just controlled him through vision. He's made sure to get deep wards and defensive wards to be able to track what Oddie is doing, and as a result, the rest of WE have been able to respond accordingly, and Oddie just has not been able to find success as of yet.
Oddie still looking to make some kind of a play on this Lee Sin. Flash nearly back up, has the Dragon's Rage available too. With those spells both up and running, you will be able to see a lot of playmaking potential out of this champion. Jirall hanging out up here, firing off the ulti against Mystic and Ben just as a zoning tool to clear these guys away and provide an opportunity for Lyon Gaming to grab the bottom tier 1 turret against their opponents. 957, the only man standing down here trying to stop this one. Nothing he can do except throw a Rupture in there and walk away as Lyon Gaming ties the turret count.
Love the play from Jirall there, because he realizes that WE are much faster on the play. They're already at the tier 1 in the top lane, and Lyon were yet to really get significant damage down onto that bottom tier 1 tower. So by clearing out the wave, by sacrificing his ulti, he allows Lyon to clear it out, and now they can start moving up to challenge this Rift Herald, so Lyon can try and stop WE from just running away with the map.
Problem with trying to stop this, though, you have to remember that xiye does have the package available. TP also going to be used by 957 here, but the rest of Lyon looking to collapse onto him. Rift Herald still going to be taken down. 957 caught out alone. Going to be juggled around as package comes in through xiye. Going to go over the red buff wall. 2 roots down onto the remaining members of Lyon in the top side. They get separated, and Oddie goes down. xiye going to be forced to flash away from that one, escaping the stun from the Scatter of the Weak as WE gets themselves out. It's a 1-for-1, but they found the Rift Herald.
So it looks like an even fight, but WE are the team to walk away with the Rift Herald. Another advantage gain, and now their eyes are straight onto this mid lane tier 1. WhiteLotus has gone back to base. They don't even need to use the objective as they hammer down onto the final outer tower from Lyon.
A little bit more damage coming through there. Stun finds its way onto Mystic, but he's still got his Janna nearby, keeping him safe. Infernal Drake has spawned. This is always that highly contested neutral objective that nobody wants to give away for free. TP going to be used by Jirall. He will have the ultimate up momentarily for this fight. Condi still looking to burn that Infernal Drake down. Is going to be secured by Team WE. Mystic going to be kept alive. An extra moment by Ben. Does get himself away. Genthix and the rest of Lyon still looking to close in on these guys as the Cat Cavalry arrives. The root comes down onto Ben. He's going to be stunned up yet again. The damage comes through. WhiteLotus going to be grabbing that one as the artillery will find the double kill for WhiteLotus.
Lyon are finding all of these kills onto Team WE, but they're not translating into objectives. They have a minion wave in the bottom lane. They have 5 members. You have Oddie flanking from the side. They could finally look to get themselves another tower as WE falls short.
Lyon wanting to pull the trigger here, but 957 holding the line with the Ruptures and the Screams. Gonna keep these guys away for now. WhiteLotus taking an extra tower shot on his way out, and Lyon is going to be stopped. Exactly what you said, Vedius. They find the fights, they find the victories there, but where's the prize?
Exactly that. WE are just so objective focused in this game. They realize that at this point in the game, before they'd been able to spend their gold, they are not strong enough to win that 5v5 fight. So they just want to take as many objectives off the board as they can. They've done a great job with the early towers. And here, perhaps they got a little bit too greedy for the Drake. But initially, things look very good. Mystic is able to, thanks to the ultimate from Ben, back away, uses the Blade Caller to just buy a little bit more time, but the Maokai ulti, you're in Maokai's territory, he locks you up. The double stun coming out from Seiya as well allows WhiteLotus to just catch up and rain hell from above, allowing this Kog'Maw to now pick up 2 kills. And just look at who's got the gold on the side of Lyon right now, Flowers, because that is a 1-0-2 Syndra, a 2-0-2 Kog'Maw. Rageblade, Morello, now completed for Lyon's 2 main hyper carries. Lyon are setting themselves up for success. They have gold on the people that they rely on to succeed, but WE are still in control of the map. They have more towers, they have more overall gold, and their composition is still scaling just as they would like.
Team WE with that 2,000 gold lead now, pushing up into the jungle of Lyon Gaming, wanting to get down some vision. Instead, Mystic losing about half his HP nearly instantly. The damage coming out there from Seiya, like you said, with that Morello Namicon completed along with the Sorcerer's Shoes. He's a serious damage threat for these squishy carries on the side of Team WE. Have to see what WE can do with the rest of this lead. They have been playing the better objective game so far, but they do have to worry about that Rageblade Kog'Maw that you mentioned.
But just to give some context, this whole goal lead is entirely on the supports. Mid, AD, top, and jungle are all so even. It is all about that Janna and how much of a gold advantage she has over Genthix, which means that coming into these next 2 fights, these teams are still very even though the gold lead does not suggest that. And that just makes it so exciting. The fact that Lyon, the clear underdogs in this first game of the World Championship, are so far holding their own in terms of the fights. But WE truly turns on in the late game fights. That is what they're known for within their region. That is what they've been able to dominate so many other teams with, and it is Mystic, the guy we highlighted at the very start. He is the main teamfight prodigy that gives so much success to Team WE.
And we mentioned it earlier, talking about how Condi's early game performance is what determines the tempo of Team WE throughout the game. This isn't a team that was saying, okay, we need to get ahead of the Kog'Maw early. We've got to win earlier, the whole game's lost. This is a team that said, control Lee, scale, and wait.
Yep.
And right now, they're controlling Lee, they're scaling, and they're waiting.
Exactly. And you look at things like their Baron taking potential. The thing about Cho'Gath, an extra smite is always handy when playing around the big purple worm. You have double AD carry in Corki and Xayah. This is a fast Baron taking team, and even with his brand new shiny armor, it's not going to be enough to deal with when this team just decides to commit to that objective. And it's going to be the onus on Lyon to make sure that they don't lose control around that Baron, because right now the vision difference is stark in favor of WE.
At the same time, though, we can't count Lyon out of this one. Like you said, impressive so far to see them going toe-to-toe with a team like WE. And they do have that 4-1 kill lead so far. They have been playing the fights well for themselves. Of course, those fights have been breaking out because WE is starting off on the objective. Lyon has been closing in, catching them between both the Lyon Gaming team and the objective that WE has already started. But we may have to see how that story changes if these guys get in just a straight-up 5v5 brawl.
And now we're getting to a point where we can truly assess how good Lyon is at being able to control these sideways. How good is their vision control? Because a team like WE is already known that they understand how to play the map. They understand how to play macro. And one of the big criticisms for Lyon in the past was that they're just a team that relies on mechanical skill and just being better than their opponents. But they can't rely on that anymore. They need to show more than that. And what we're seeing so far is that they're still being pushed back by WE. They're still giving a lot of freedom to WE. They're a little bit too afraid right now to pull the trigger, but that Kog'Maw is on track to completing his second item. They still have decent vision control around their own entrances, and they have a spot of vision on the Baron itself, along with the main mid lane area. So Lyon, their focus for now is just setting up more of a defensive approach rather than we want to try and be the ones to make the next play.
And I really want to bring attention to WhiteLotus specifically. You mentioned how the Kog'Maw 2-0 and 2, he's 100% kill participation so far. We talked about how good this guy is as a player, and going up against Mystic, that is not the easy matchup to say, oh, look at how good of a player I am. This is the guy that, remember when Mark and Zyrene and Dracos were talking at the start of this about how Mystic might be the best player in the entirety of play-ins. And WhiteLotus is going toe-to-toe with this guy. He's the only one on his team who's winning in CS comparison right now. 100% kill participation, like I already mentioned. He might just be able to step up this game and be that carry.
And with both teams just grouping up as a 5-man in mid, you can just keep your eyes on Jirall on the bottom. Look at this ward that's in the middle lane right there at the edge next to Seiya. That could be a huge flanking ward as WE and the squad try to push up into the middle lane, giving Lyon that opportunity to force a fight. But WE, they pull back. They don't overcommit to the middle lane. Their eyes are on this potential third Drake, setting up for the Elder. As WE, they're looking for the fight. Righteous Glory popped.
Righteous Glory used by 957, looking to go in, finding the silence onto 2. Knock-up landing there onto Oddie. Condi looking to find his way into the side of the fight there. Jirall makes his way in, gonna go ahead and fire off the ultimate. 957 caught out here a little bit. That Cho'Gath is gonna be the first target. Bursted down. Nye immediately, Oddie grabbing the kill onto him as now WhiteLotus having to back away. The Featherstorm comes down, the stun, finding its way onto xiye as Jirall continues to tank here in the front line. Lyon in retreat. They're going to lose one as WhiteLotus now exhausted, but a massive scat of the week will find multiple targets, and WE will be sent home on their back feet.
And that was the playmaker we were talking about. Seiya in the middle lane, utilizing this Syndra to punish WE as they commit a little bit too hard. Captain Flowers, they have 4 members left alive. Their eyes are on a 23-minute Baron against WE. Things are looking great for the Latin American North representatives.
Their health bars are low. This is a risky take, Medius. I think they might not be able to clear it. Oddie has to jump back in to safeguard Genthix, and they have to disengage. They can't secure the Baron.
Unfortunate for Lyon, but still a big team fight win for them. You can hear the crowd getting so excited about these close fights. WE, they still have the gold lead, but remember, a lot of that is on the support. And the fact that Lyon were able to turn around that fight is so good. So WE commit hard. They want to force this fight, but they cannot successfully get onto WhiteLotus, and that allows the front line to come into effect. Jirall soaks up a lot of the initial damage. You can see Oddie here as well with a fantastic kick onto Mystic, but there's no follow-up damage. Say he doesn't want to commit. And then you have to see so much damage being sent onto the back line of Lyon. Jirall falls as well. And you're now at this point where it's 1-for-1. Lyon are on the back foot, but then a great 3-man stun with the follow-up damage from WhiteLotus allows them to get the turnaround fight in their favor, but they just don't have the HP to get the big purple worm, and it ends up in just a neutral standstill between the two.
And look at the damage comparison from that last team fight. Nearly 5,500 damage from Seiya's Syndra to be the highest scoring member in that fight. Really doing a lot of work for this team.
And this is one of the things that I was so excited about coming into this tournament, Flowers, because I feel like right now, in the current meta, has the greatest potential for upsets because of how much the game revolves around team fighting. And you can say a lot about macro and your ability to play sideways, but when you look at just the raw talent, Lyon are going head-to-head with Team WE. They are holding their own in these fights. And it just goes to show that one bad team fight from WE can give such a massive swing of momentum in the favor of Lyon, but the same is true for the other side. WE, known for their ability to team fight, is resulting in these very close back and forth exchanges.
Want to go ahead and update. We are hitting those 2-item power spikes for a lot of people now. Righteous Glory done for Jirall's Maokai, along with the Spirit Visage from earlier. Knight's Vow now completed onto Condi's Gragas, so he'll have that much extra protection for these carries. Rapid Fire plus the Trinity Force for xiye's Corki means much more poke damage as well. Runan's Hurricane completed a little while back for WhiteLotus' Kog'Maw, actually, for that team fight damage, as now he'll be looking to solo down this Cloud Drake, get a little bit of extra movement speed for his team.
Fun fact for any players at home that are struggling to deal with Kog'Maw, Adaptive Helm, really good item, especially against Rageblade Kog'Maw, because even though his W does percentage health damage, it's actually magic damage, which means that when you build an Adaptive Helm, each one of those empowered autos, that damage gets reduced, especially with a Rageblade, which gives you more AP. it is very effective at shutting down a mid-game Kog'Maw. But so far, we're not seeing any early adaptive helms. They're just trying to focus on...
Well, we've got one, but it's on his team.
Yeah, exactly that. I think we're going to get another fight soon, Flowers.
Baron is up, remember, was not secured earlier. Silence down onto Jirall, who's going to be taking a lot of damage and bursted down by the power of the Cho'Gath ultimate. WE finding themselves one for free. Ultimate coming out from Mystic there as they continue to chase now onto Genthix, who's going to find himself knocked back by the explosive cast. 2 for 0, Team WE finding a vulnerability in Lyon and punishing immediately.
Exactly that. Lyon dropped the ball and WE immediately punished. They identified Jirall just alone in the river. Seiya, he was in the top side of the river and they spotted him out thanks to that control ward that they have further up on the side of the map. They get the immediate punish, they take out the tank, but they're not going to yet commit to that Baron.
They got rid of the top laner, they got rid of the support, but the jungler is still up. WE does not want to run that risk of potentially having the Baron stolen away, giving an opportunity for Seiya and WhiteLotus to jump in there and pour damage into the WE lines as they make the Baron, so they'll just go for the safe option instead. Their gold lead has grown to about 3,000 now. Despite the fact that they have not been ahead in this game in terms of kills ever, they are maintaining the gold lead through strict superior objective control and patience.
Exactly that, Flowers. Right now, they have been controlling the map so much better than Lyon, even though Lyon have been finding a lot of great fights and a lot of kills. The important thing to remember is that this dual AD carry is going to be extremely threatening when it comes to killing that front line later into the game. Remember what we talked about in Champion Select. It's very much in these late game fights about which front line drops faster. And when you have double AD carries on 3 items, funnily enough, they do quite a lot of damage. And sure, you can say the same for Kog'Maw, but Syndra, she struggles a little bit, especially once that magic resistance really starts stacking for both the Cho'Gath and the Gragas too. So the later this game goes, the harder things are going to get for Lyon to really win out these team fights. And WE, they know this. They're putting the pressure on Lyon and they're saying, come on, make your play, make your move. And so far, Lyon have done a decent job at making things work in their favor, but they're yet to really translate it into a significant map game.
Lyon recognizing the WE is trying to set up some kind of a play around the Baron here. Oddie getting himself back. Seiya popping the scat of the week. Not going to be finding anything with it. The burst coming down onto Oddie as 957 going to be tanking all the damage. And WhiteLotus will seal his fate. Oddie now having to retreat away from Team WE's collapse. Genthix on the front line here. This will likely just be a 1-for-1 trade unless Oddie has some massively fancy feet to get away from this one. The juke boots are on, but I don't think they are going to be.
He's still running.
No, he's still trying it, but that last rocket from xiye takes him down.
But this is still fine because WE don't find a significant team fight win. They give up pressure in the mid lane, allowing Lyon to get onto this tower. And it ends up only being a 1-for-1 trade, so Lyon end up coming out ahead in that play that WE tried to force.
Ben nearly taken down by WhiteLotus, going to be forced to flash out from that one with just under 100 HP remaining. WhiteLotus's damage, honestly, when 957 was in the jungle zoning this entire team away, he's got his stone plate on, his flex is up and running, and he just gets eviscerated.
WhiteLotus is just doing so much work for his team. Got put on the Kog'Maw. We thought he was going to be one of the big carries for the team, and he's just been farming away, picking up these kills, yet to die in this first match. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is only a best of 1. This is the group stages of the play-ins. All these teams only play 4 games, and a win here could mean a lot.
WE deciding to pull the trigger onto Baron now. Lyon needs to close in and do something. Baron down below 1/4 HP, going to be secured here likely by Condi. Secured instead by 957 is now. WE might find themselves caught between a rock and a hard place. Jirall on the front line. Is Condi going to be potentially taken down next? Mystic trying to get himself away, but he's going to be picked off. It's 3 for 0 for Lyon Gaming, but the Baron still up and running on the solo laners for WE.
WE, they knew they had the Cho'Gath. They knew they could secure the objective, along with the fact that Oddie was dead, but Lyon were in the better position to fight. The Kog'Maw was completely untouched, and Oddie even got a flank onto Mystic. Lyon, yes, they lose the Baron, but they are consistently winning these fights, Flowers. This game is still so close, and I could not think of a better way to kick off the World Championship.
This is one hell of a kickoff between these two teams. Lyon Gaming from the LLN going blow for blow with Team WE from the LPL. One more look at the Baron fight.
So Oddie just gets there a little bit too late. But WE, they're forced in the back of the pit and they're just trying to disengage while the rest of Lyon, they're just focusing down the front line. Then they're like, oh, your front line is retreating. That means I'll just hit the AD carry into the front line and make him the primary target for WhiteLotus. 6-0-5 on the Latin American North superstar right now. He's completed his third item, working on his fourth. And we talked about how things are going to get hard for Lyon in the late game. Well, if things keep fighting, if fights keep going this way for Lyon, they're not going to struggle at all.
Now let's keep in mind, Baron is still up and running on both xiye and 957. So they will have that for another 2 minutes to potentially utilize as a pushing tool against Lyon Gaming. And WE has been good at controlling objectives so far. It'll be up to Lyon to stop that and find an opportunity to do another one of these immaculate team fights that they have showcased so far. The time being, though, they're on the retreat as WE controls the area around this next Drake. It will be yet another Infernal. Maokai ultimate going to be fired off, seeing who they can potentially catch out here. Condi going to be rooted up by the very edge of one of those cats, WhiteLotus, taking a lot of damage early on, but not as much as Condi. A rampage for Seiya. 957 now going to be stunned up, bursted down before he can do a whole lot of anything. Seiya grabbing himself the double kill. They managed to take Ben down as well. Oddie nearly going to be killed, does get taken down. WhiteLotus attacking the Infernal Drake. Stunned down onto xiye. Both damage dealers still active for Team WE. Jirall trying to zone these guys away. Seiya also going to be on point. Secured the Infernal Drake for Lyon.
You're now starting to see the issue with WE's composition with their inability to reliably start fights. Because you have a Braum and a Maokai just sitting on the front line, Condi has no reliable way to just pick a focused target that he wants to knock into the rest of his team. That means that WE, every time a fight starts, it's actually on Lyon's terms. It is always them that are kicking off these fights, and it's always in their favor. So Condi gets separated from the rest of his team. They realize that, oh, well, we want to focus down the front line anyway, so we may as well just kill him. Braum is then just dealing with the other 4 members, and then Lyon turn their attention. Now, this is where you start to look at Mystic, and you realize how effective this guy can be when he's put in a position to carry. Landing feathers onto the right targets, making sure that he's still dealing damage in order to make sure that things don't fall apart for the side of WE, but that's still another big team fight win for the side of Lyon Gaming.
More good fighting from Lyon Gaming. This team seriously looking to impress here in game number 1 of Worlds 2017. 1,000 gold behind Team WE. Behind the team that everybody said, this is the team that you don't have to worry about in play-ins. Like, this is the team, a lot of people were expecting these guys to go really far, even in the main event, past the play-ins. But right now, Lyon Gaming is looking like they might be a serious threat to WE starting off strong.
And that's why this meta is so great for these regions that in the past you wouldn't really expect to be able to challenge some of these top teams, because it all eventually just boils down to these fights. These fights are just so important, and the mechanical prowess of Oddie, Seiya, WhiteLotus, the whole team is just keeping up with that of WE, a team that's praised for their team fighting prowess within the LPL region. And it's just so exciting to see these two teams butt heads, but it's still about can Lyon close? Right. Because it's one thing to be able to win a lot of fights, but it's another to then translate that lead into a game win.
They have had a lot of good fights, though, so far, Vedius. We cannot say that enough. This team truly impressing in the actual PvP of League of Legends. 4 items, not including the boots, now completed on WhiteLotus. Blade of the Ruined King, all the way done, means he's going to have that much more HP shred against these front lines. And look at the build on the side of Condi. He's got the adaptive helm you were talking about. He's got Cinder Hook and he's got Knight's Vow. But up against a Blade of the Ruined King Kog'Maw, that's a grand total of 40 armor. Wow. Because he's got Mercury Treads as well. That's not very effective.
No.
That's preventing the shred.
And there's no locket yet complete on the side of WE to mitigate some of that Syndra burst too. So sure, that's a fair amount of magic resistance, but at the same time, that locket really helps mitigate the burst, especially onto someone like a Janna. If that Seiya just insta-kills the Janna, then suddenly you're losing the power of Art and Sensor. You're losing that same level of utility.
The carries on the side of Lyon Gaming are a combined 12, 0, and 15. Wow. And as cool as the 12 and the 15 are, the big number in that lineup for me is the 0. Neither one of these two has died yet in this game.
And it's just because WE have no real backline threat. They just have to kill through the front line. And there's just so much disengage. There's so much ability for Lyon to immediately peel back off. The WE really are struggling. And I feel like it's just because a lot of these fights have been WE forcing them. We have to remember that. Like, if we think to the mid lane fight, it was WE righteous glory from 957, flanking in from Condi. The fight ended up backfiring. Around the dragon, it was WE starting off these dragons, baiting Lyon into these fights. The Baron, it was WE starting off the Baron and asking Lyon to come and fight them. So Lyon, they haven't needed to be proactive in trying to make any of these fights happen. They've just waited for WE to make the move, and they've reactively been able to successfully punish them. They've been the ones in the better position. And WE just makes you wonder, did they need to make a lot of these fights happen? Did they need to push this as much as they have? Because now Lyon are in a position where I would give the teamfight advantage over to them in the current state of the game.
Well, the current state of the game also includes a 25-second timer before Baron Nashor respawns, as well as about 100 seconds until Elder Dragon rears his head for the first time this game. Pretty even Drake count between the teams as well. 2 versus 2, an Infernal on both sides, and then Ocean as well as Cloud. As Lyon setting up a potential trap here to send WhiteLotus out into the mid lane. Clearing out the wave, pushing that down with the artillery. And now they move towards Baron.
So for W, I'm still keeping my eyes on Mystic. How much of a teamfight carry can he be? A lot of praise has gone towards this AD carry. Now's the moment to see if he can step up.
All right, they're just pulling the trigger. There is no waiting around on this one, Vedius. We are starting Baron Nashor up. Lyon Gaming has it burned down to about 1/3 now. Condi looking to potentially contest this one. Ulti fired off by the Maokai. They're going to find their way onto 957 here at the start. Jirall going to be taken very low. Condi now into the front line. Lyon Gaming potentially in some trouble. Oddie taking a lot of burst on this one as WhiteLotus now going to be caught out. Condi potentially finding his way there into the back line, but WE is very low. Janna keeping him alive.
Oh, these fights, man, they are so close. But now
on a razor's edge, but WE has such a health advantage now. Mystic and xiye both in fantastic condition.
TP?
Critical health from all of Lyon, but the TP is canceled.
Cancelled? Oh, this is risky now. Flowers, I think they're going to lose the Baron.
They do. Baron secured by Team WE. That was awesome for these guys. They were able to win the fight. They were able to keep Lyon away. They secure the objective.
This time it was Lyon forcing the play. They were the ones to kick off the objective. The fight looked so good for them initially, but WE get the turnaround. They do not lose their tanky frontline. Cho'Gath does not end up dying. They almost kill WhiteLotus, but there was enough peel from Genthix and Jirall to keep him alive. But because of all the low health members, they're the ones then to commit to the Baron. They have the TP on the Cho'Gath. He then rejoins the fight, and they take that Baron down. They now have their eyes set on the Elder Dragon too. They have 2 Drakes in their favor. Can Lyon answer this big objective?
WE's got Baron up on all their members. They've also got the Corki package available. This is not something you want to run into if you're the side of Lyon Gaming, and they will not contest this, but now they're staring down the barrel of 2 massive buffs up on WE at the same time for the next 2.5 minutes.
Oh, WE, they've come back with a surge. Their composition is very strong at this point in the game, and Lyon, they're the ones on the back foot. They're the ones going to have to demonstrate if they can find another fantastic fight as WE looks to break into the base of Lyon Gaming.
WE with nearly full builds on those carries as well. The damage threat is very real. They've got that 1 cannon minion boosted up by the power of the Baron buff, continuing to chip away at this tier 3 turret, waiting on that next minion wave. And then you will likely see these guys moving up, trying to break into this base of Lyon Gaming.
Just keep your eyes on the top and bot lane as well. They don't have a wave yet from WE, so they only have the options of pushing in mid. Lyon are doing a fine job defending, but that tower is slowly being chipped away.
More and more damage flying out. Remember, you get 135 true damage over 3 seconds from the Elder Dragon burn when you've got these 2 Elemental Drakes under your belt. Team WE in a good spot right now to continue this push, keep threatening onto this. That mid lane tier 3 now down to about 1/3 HP means the next wave could be the one where they decide to go all in. Then coming up right behind the rest of the team, xiye on the front line pushing this one down, and WE will march straight into Lyon's territory, kick in the front door, and take the inhibitor out with.
So Lyon recognized that, you know what, it's not the end of the world if we just lose our middle inhibitor. They have an Elder Dragon, they have Baron empowered minions, they have a gold advantage. Let's not risk losing the game right now. Let's just accept the losses, know that WE cannot punish us anywhere else, and we'll just try to come back later on. WE, they're in a great spot right now.
And how this game has shifted, Vedius. We were talking about how Lyon looked stronger for the time being. The gold gap was slowly but surely closing. Lyon looked like they were in the driver's seat. and then the Baron fight doesn't go their way, WE knows exactly how to play it to keep them away and make sure the situation goes their way. And with that Baron, they demonstrate the strength of this team in terms of taking whatever they can and translating that into huge leaps and bounds in terms of getting that lead bigger. And now it's a 7,000 gold difference.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. But at this point in the game where most of the players are nearing full items, you have to start looking at that gold and you're like, how much value does it actually have? The real value is going to come from these neutral objectives like the Elder Dragon and the Baron. And as long as Lyon can stall out so they don't lose that much more, the next respawning of these big objectives is where things are really going to get tense. I feel like the next Baron spawn is going to be where the game is decided, because WE, they're going to struggle to really push onto these towers. They have a lot of poke from the Corki, but there's so much pick threat from the Syndra. The possibility of a flank from Oddie or Jirall is always there. So Lyon, they're a threat. They're just waiting to pounce at overextended WE.
A lot of pressure here on WhiteLotus and Seiya both to find the damage against this WE frontline. The last fight, the fight at Baron, they weren't able to bring them down in time, and it allowed WE to turn things around and find that big momentum shift that we were just talking about. WE also, a lot of pressure on these guys. Remember, these are the hometown favorites. This is the team that all the fans out there are expecting these guys to run away with this, stop this game, win against these guys. And right now, they're looking like they're in a better and better spot as time ticks on to find that win. But they've still got to close it out. WhiteLotus taking a lot of damage from that single crit out of xiye, returning a little bit of pain of his own, finding another living artillery there on the back end of that skirmish. Cask thrown up into the base gate. WE playing this one very slowly, very safely. You talked about how Lyon didn't want to commit to any sort of a fight in their base against a Elder Drake Baroned up team, didn't want to take any excessive risks. WE not really wanting to do the same either in terms of structuring this push. Rupture not finding its way onto WhiteLotus there. 957 going to be losing about half his HP. Syndra ulti used on Condi and barely even going to take off a quarter of his health. Not a lot of gain for a pretty large cooldown to have down. Mystic and xiye are both feeling a lot safer.
Now look at the number of people that have just gone back from the side of Lyon Gaming. Only WhiteLotus here, and he's afraid of getting engaged upon by Condi. So WE using this as an opportunity, along with the pushing wave in top and in mid. Their eyes are on this tier 3 tower in the bottom lane as they continue their push.
Palace been used by Ben there to speed the team up a little bit. Seiya popping the ghosts. Lyon not finding their engage.
WE know that there's a big minion wave top, and they'll guarantee themselves that tower if they just keep the pressure up bot. They're now utilizing all 3 waves to just slowly siege into Lyon, but look.
WhiteLotus gonna be knocked up. Silence knocked around a little bit. The CC continuing to come out. Mystic now in the retreat. Jirall coming in from the side. Lyon will chase WE back. 957, the one who loses most of the HP there. But Lyon does not want to chase it out any further. Genthix nearly taken down, also has to retreat back into the base, and the inhibitor turret will fall. The long siege from WE paying off now as Jirall finds his way in onto Mystic, forcing out the ulti from the Xayah immediately. 957 still on the front line. Cask thrown out to try to disengage this one. They continue to look for more. WhiteLotus again, got to be so careful. Low on health, low on mana. Not really any way to stop this take, and the second inhibitor will fall.
So, WE finally take that second inhibitor down from Lyon. Their defense is not strong enough to keep the LPL representatives out of their base. They also lose the tier 2 top lane tower. And now the Baron is respawning. The objectives for WE are so clear. They know exactly where to move around the map. And Lyon, they're struggling to find the fights themselves. Because Oddie cannot get a successful flank off, it is very hard for them to really kick these fights off in their favor. Remember, a lot of the fights they were winning, again, was because WE were the ones starting things off, and then Lyon could respond. But now everything is in WE's core. They're the ones controlling the side lanes. They're the ones with control over the vision, and they're the ones looking to take control over the Baron.
And you know, Bettius, we talked about how WE is the kind of team who plays safe when behind. They're the kind of team that waits for their opponents to make a mistake, and now Lyon may have made that mistake coming out this far. WE definitely not behind at this point in time, though. When they did feel like they were behind earlier, they waited for Lyon to go for that Baron, and then they punished exactly what you would want to see out of a team that likes to play methodically like this. Now Baron and Elder going to be an issue again very soon. Elder not live yet, but Baron is on the table. Lyon cannot afford to just give these away.
Now remember, the mid lane inhibitor has respawned. Lyon, notice the Baron started. They have TP up, they're gonna force the fight.
Baron below half HP, but now it's gonna be xiye diving into the fight with the package there into the back line. Now Lyon's front line trying to tank up the carries on the side of Team WE, but xiye's grabbing the rampage onto the support player. Condi dropping next as Seiya tries to kite himself backwards. WhiteLotus potentially gonna be caught out here. The shutdown from Mystic. As Lyon now losing that Kog'Maw means they have very little to resist the 4-man push of Team WE, Baron or not. The victory march is coming.
WhiteLotus was CC'd for so much of that fight. He could not output the damage. Seiya this late into the game could not match that of xiye. WE play the fight beautifully, and they're going to take game 1 in the World Championship.
The home team makes their statement. It was a little bit rough getting here, but they have managed to close this game out 47 minutes in as the Nexus turrets fall, and WE will claim the first victory of Worlds 2017.
I was not expecting that game to go like that, though, Captain Flowers. I thought that WE would just come in convincing, especially after the start in the early game. Oddie didn't get any successful snowball. Condi had full control. WE was scaling very nicely. Everything was looking good, but Lyon were just winning fight after fight after fight. WhiteLotus and Seiya did not die until the final team fight. And it just made you realize that the competition this year is looking fierce.
It is very fierce. Remember, these are the teams, during the play-in stage, we have a grand total of 12 teams competing for 4 spots in the main group stage at Worlds. That means that your chance to get in there is about 1 in 3. You've really got to step up. If the competition is going to be this intense between these teams, you have got to make sure that you are leaving everything out there on Summoner's Rift. And you honestly cannot fault Lyon Gaming and say, oh, well, they didn't leave everything on the Rift. They weren't really trying that hard. This team put on an immaculate show. They had one hell of a showing up against a team that a lot of people were counting them out against, especially the hometown fans here, considering where Worlds is taking place in China in 2017. That's a wall to have to run into for your very first game, and Lyon played it very well.
And if I was Lyon, I'd feel pretty confident, especially going up against Gambit later on today. Like, they put up a very strong performance, and they did not rely on that Oddie early snowball. They were able to rely on their own individual talent, the ability to punish the small mistakes made by WE, and just find those very impressive early game leads. That was a fun game. It's really great way to start off the tournament. Such tense team fighting, but it was WE that came out superior in the end. Once they were able to punish Lyon for that Baron attempt, they just did not let go of control, and they just seemed to be playing the fight so much cleaner than they had previously in the game.
And when the analysts were talking before the game actually started about the players that you want to be watching from these first couple of groups, that game showcased exactly why both WhiteLotus and Mystic were on that list of players to watch. But now to hear more about our first game of Worlds, let's send it over to the desk.
Thank you very much, Flowers. Of course, I am just stunned by the way that game unfolded. We thought WE would find the win. They did find the win in the end, but Lyon showed up in that game. I mean, it's one of the reasons we said the 2 players to watch on the Rift. You know, one was Mystic, one was WhiteLotus. WhiteLotus had a great performance on the Kog'Maw, was almost able to carry them, but came up just a little bit too short.
Yeah, that was an incredible game to start off Worlds. Like, absolutely insane. And we were talking about best of ones and respect. Like, we're seeing that these emerging regions, like the LLN, actually have a whole lot of strength to them. They were able to match up to WE in most areas, except it was kind of the macro play and the decision-making that was the one thing that kind of fell short.
Yeah, and it was interesting, too, look at how WE played the early to mid-game, and almost the entire game, it felt like so much focus on these objectives, and as we look at some of these early fights, these early contests for these objectives, you can see WE very eager, it would appear, at least to me, to start trying to force these fights.
I think the big thing, it felt like they were feeling that they had some just advantages. This first one was a little risky that they just brute forced it, basically. You see that Lyon collapse. Condi has to kind of sacrifice in there to keep Mystic alive. And off that first kill, that's nice for Lyon, but they start falling behind in tempo. And then WE brute forces down onto this Rift Herald, and Lyon, instead of resetting after taking the bot turret, actually runs all the way up and contests.
Yeah, and this felt like WE were kind of testing the waters. They're like, all right, we're gonna play standard, we're gonna get every objective, and sometimes in a really kind of greedy fashion, But the thing that surprised me about Lyon is they went and they contested objectives, like you said, across the map. The first 6 neutral objectives between Rift Herald, Baron, and 4 Dragons, 5 of them were contested with a team fight from Lyon Gaming walking up on WE.
I think that's just the thing, is it felt like Lyon was a little slow to the fights. They were never quite set up, so when they did get a kill or two, it felt like they had a hard time transitioning it into more.
Yeah, because normally it's like, oh, we got a kill, then we can go do an objective. But they got kills as the objectives were being done by WE, so they weren't able to get a lot of advantages. It was kind of a split 2 for 2 in Drakes. The Rift Herald went over to WE, and then the first Baron as well.
And the towers coming in as well felt like it built most of WE's gold lead, despite what Lyon was able to find early on. However, as we enter the mid game, this is where things got crazy. This is where we started to see exactly how strong Lyon was. That is going to be our Acer Predator replay. Let's take a look at how this one unfolds.
Yeah, this was the one where we saw 957 flash forward to try and get an engage, and then it was the TP and the turnaround here. The root landing onto 957 to push him back in, and then it became the kite back here from Team WE. But Lyon, I love watching Seiya here. This is just a huge standout scatter of the week, because WhiteLotus has no flash, gets exhausted. He's going to be dead to rights here, and a beautiful scatter of the week.
And then this is where things come off the hinges a little bit, because it feels like right then you can go and potentially force that Baron down. What ends up happening is Seiya hovers around the mid lane, kind of zoning 2 people away, and then as they're doing that Baron, they realize we don't quite have enough health, we don't quite have enough damage, and it would have been better if he was there throwing damage out and doing the zoning near Baron, and they lost that opportunity for a Baron. And then there was another one later where they had a Maokai ult, and instead of finishing the Baron behind it, they followed up on the Maokai ult for an engage.
And you're talking about the decision making of if he was there, even to provide damage, to take a few extra hits from the Baron, right? These are the things that needed a little more fine-tuning from Lyon, because they had the mechanics in the team fight, they had the front line and knew how to actually play around it, and then it was just those decisions. And it was very impressive, because this is not exactly what we were expecting from Lyon.
Yeah, no, fine-tuning was not what we expected. We thought, hey, these guys are going to get outclassed mechanically. We thought they're going to get outclassed macro. That was the potential. That was, you know, the setup we thought when we look at the history of how well the LPL has been able to perform. But these guys were incredibly dominant. I think we have to praise Oddie as well, because a lot of these team fights, how did he manage to find a way in as a LYN?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard thing. I mean, he's one of those champions who's very team comp dependent. When you're playing against a Janna, a Gragas, and then a Corki, and a
Xayah, and a Cho'Gath.
They have so many tools to deny that LYN engage, but he kept finding opportunities, so he deserves a huge tip of the cap to as well.
Yeah, as well as Seiya, because the guy was an insane performance on the Syndra, winning the early game in the lane phase. He was up, got the first blood as well, and that guy has been a huge standout performer for them. We've talked about how Lyon Gaming have 9 regional championships. The only member on the team who has been a part of all 9 is the mid laner Seiya, so he's a big power point for them alongside WhiteLotus, who both had pretty much deathless games until the end.
But we saw once those team fight wins started to come out for Lyon, WE felt like gave them a lot more respect, started to play the game a lot slower. When they finally did find that winning team fight, when they finally did find that Baron, no more was it the, hey, let's force a fight everywhere. It's the, let's take it slow and steady. Let's see what options we have.
And this is what they needed to do. They needed to wait for the other team to come into them and then kind of counter-engage. It was a lot harder when they're brute forcing, you know, with the Cho'Gath running in. Here, they're able to just focus down the tanks. WhiteLotus is kind of having to deal with 2 fronts at the same time. Xiye on the backside had his threat over there, and in the meantime, the rest of WE was following up that ramp, and slowly they just ran out of resources. Eventually, his flash went down, and they were able to collapse onto him, finally get that kill, and then from there, W's going to be able to close out the game. But like you're saying, you know, just a great performance early on out of Lyon Gaming.
Yeah, and you were talking about Lyon Gaming back at MSI being 1 game behind Gigabyte Marines. Looks like that wasn't a bit of a mistake there, because they actually had a lot of great strength.
Yeah, and let's also be clear, Gigabyte Marines aren't in this group right now. They don't have to worry about fighting Gigabyte Marines, but after that performance, we have to wonder, are these going to be the guys that take that 1st or 2nd seed, because they're incredibly close to beating them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Gambit and you're watching this game saying, I wonder, you know, how things are going to look as we continue to play out this group, you're probably a little nervous, because they looked really, really good here against WE.
Well, I'm nervous for this group in general, because WE did not look incredibly strong versus Lyon. Lyon showed a lot of strength here, but remember, this is Gambit Gaming with a lot of kind of variance to them. Edward has those awkward plays where he's up top making plays. Then you have people like Kira and PvP Stayhost from the Albus Nox Luna lineup that went the furthest that any emerging region had ever gone before.
Yeah, and we look at this as well. I think the big thing is that WE are still able to find the win. At the end, it does feel like their play was cleaned up, like they were a little bit more comfortable, but I mean, now that they've kind of exposed some of these weaknesses, what do they have to do to tune up coming into the next game?
I think I wouldn't really call it disrespect of them. It was kind of they were testing the waters in the least aggressive way possible. We're like, let's do an objective and see what the enemy team will do to us. Oh, they're gonna fight us every single time. Okay, now that we know that, let's stop just forcing every objective and make sure we set up properly. It wasn't really disrespectful, but it was like I said, testing the waters. Lyon clearly able to keep up with them in that regard, and it was just that macro decision making that once WE kind of figured that part out, that was able to give them the big advantage, and that's something that they'll have over the course of this group stage, most likely.
Yeah, it makes me really excited for the rematch tomorrow between these two teams. What is that going to look like? Is it more of the same, or are WE going to adapt and change it up a little bit?
Or Lyon going to adapt, right? The constant question, how are these best of ones going to affect moving forward? And do you think that Gambit now, sitting on deck, waiting to play these teams, do you think they come in with a bigger advantage just seeing what these teams have brought to the table?
There's some things that you can definitely take away from it, like, hey, that Kog'Maw was terrifying. He got really fed. Same with Seiya's Syndra. Those are two things that if I was going to say, I probably wouldn't want to get them again. The Lee Sin looked like a little bit of a non-factor. Condi did a really good job tracking him in the early game and getting a big advantage there. So I think those are some of the things that you're potentially looking at for Gambit if you're going up against Lyon and what you want to take away from them.
Interesting to see, too, exactly how this has gone through, exactly what these teams have brought. At the end of the day, though, still the win for WE, and looking forward, so many more games ahead of us, so many more unknowns. How many more of these smaller regions are going to contest? Well, as things kick off in Wuhan, make sure you take to Twitter with your World's Big Plays. Tweet to @LO Esports, with the hashtag Worlds2017, and we will share your plays all month long. Now, we're heading to a commercial break, but when we return, North America's Cloud9 faces off against CB Law's Team 1 Esports. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Finds himself rooted up, locked down. And first blood of Worlds 2017 goes to Lyon Gaming. Lyon in retreat. They're going to lose one as WhiteLotus now exhausted. But a massive scat of the week will find multiple targets. Now WE might find themselves caught between a rock and a hard place. Jirall on the front line. Is Condi going to be potentially taken down next? Mystic trying to get himself away, but he's going to be picked off. It's 3-0 for Lyon Gaming. 957 now going to be stunned up first and down before he can do a whole lot of anything. Lyon's front line trying to tank up the carries on the side of Team WE, but xiye is grabbing the rampage. One of the support player. Condi dropping next as Seiya tries to kite himself backwards. WhiteLotus potentially going to be caught out here. The shutdown from Mystic. WE will claim the first victory of Worlds 2017.